everybody, welcome to a new video for my YouTube channel. My name is Natalia Bonilla. I am a leadership and entrepreneurship mentor and producer of the Womanhood and International Relations podcast, already available in Spotify, iTunes, and Anchor FM. And in today's video, we will be sharing with you 3 leadership lessons we can learn from Angela Merkel's Germany's Chancellor. This video is part of a full series that we have begun here in our YouTube channel called Women Leaders Around the World, where we are exploring different case studies from women in power positions taking over with hegemonic masculinity or feminine skills in consideration to make changes in her personality or their personalities or power positions, or even to change the course of their nations. So if you're interested in learning more about women in leadership, women in power, or different types of feminisms in international relations, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and be on the lookout for other videos like this. Okay, let's begin. Angela Merkel's type of leadership is often considered by other world leaders, political analysts, as sometimes very boring, stable, passive. However, there are many lessons that we can take from that approach. Patience and slow decision-making, that first quality, was often considered to be a side eye from other world leaders, but actually made her type of leadership very emblematic. She took her time, coming from a background as physicist and chemistry major, to look at all the different facts in a situation, specifically when managing crisis, and considering all the possible options and taking decisions based on medium and long-term goals. It is often considered that approach to be very unrealistic in terms of how we grow accustomed to leaders reacting rapidly and consider that that's good leadership, which we have normalized that rapid action is the best. However, is it in terms of her legacy? We can see that in 2008 financial crisis, in the crisis as well with the refugees in 2015, she was very taking her time in order to make a strong statement. She was looking at different facts, different ways that situations could be solved, and always taking consideration the medium and long-term effects that Germany will have to endure, even in the 2020 pandemic of COVID-19. And that's important. That's important to take in consideration, because we can see that as a flaw, but she took it as her advantage because nobody knew what was going on her mind. And even the decisions, specifically in the terms of the refugee crisis, of the Mediterranean and what happened in Syria and the opening of borders to migrants, she took time. She was studying the case for years prior to that 2015 announcement. It's just that she was not saying it out loud, which gives space to the second big lesson that we can take. And that's for all of you out there that are introverts or reserved persons. Hello, hi. Merkel was considered to be an introvert person, and one of the best skills that she had developed was deep listening. While other world leaders and even rival opponents in national elections were always targeting that she was not a good public speaker, she was always listening, and was a very good listening and knowing where to chime in when other people were saying a lot of things and not necessarily saying something. So she was taking that into consideration and practicing deep listening. And even if she was not considered to be this empathic type of personality, she was showing emotions from time to time, and she was making even passionate speeches. But Merkel did not escape her culture. And early on in her power, in her power position, she was seeing a lot of sexism take place, not only from her conservative party, but also from the different opponents and even from media. The big scandal that took place in her 16 years was when she decided to go to the opera in 2008 and show a bit of her cleavage. And that took the world by storm, specifically in Germany, because it aroused a lot of conversations on whether, like the German Chancellor could showcase, her bosom. And, that really created a change in her image. She decided to opt for a specific type of uniform, which we often see her, wearing very solid colors and the same type of clothes, and she's not, changing it too much. And in part, it was because she didn't want her image to distract her from, being taken seriously, and also from all the criticism that she was exposed to. It is important to know that Europe, even as it considers some of these countries to be so progressive in terms of women's rights and gender equality, she was oftentimes in her 16 years the only woman in the table, in front of other world leaders in her own region and around the world. And she has received a lot of backlash from feminist organizations and feminist activists saying that, she should have been, more advocating for women's rights, or she should have, proclaimed herself feminist. She took a long time to say that she was a feminist, etc. But looking at the landscape and the different types of behaviors that she was encountering from the get-go, it is, essential that we take those items in consideration. Specifically what happened in 2007 when she met with Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, and having, a very known fear to dogs. When she met with him in his residence in Sochi, he brought over to the meeting his Black Labrador, and that took also her by surprise, and she handled that situation in a very calm way. But as him was taking those type of decisions to try to unsettle her, there were many other world leaders that did not take her seriously at all, and even were very hesitant about her type of leadership or leading Germany. So if that was happening at the international level, at the domestic level, she was also receiving a lot of sexist and discriminatory behaviors from her political party, and not enough support, at least not early on. With time and her managing of crises and her bringing prosperity to Germany, we can see that those dynamics shifted. And due to her fact of deep listening and patience, these two lessons that we can take, she took other decisions as very advantageous. Like, for example, she decided to run over the vote for gay marriage in Germany back at the time where the polls at the national level were very favorable. Up to 76% of the people were, favoring gay marriage, and her rival opponents for the national election were going to take that stance against her. So she decided to take the upper hand, once again, by deep listening and looking at, how the situation was moving, in order to take the lead and be like, no, I'm gonna, move forward with this, and you're not gonna use it against me. The third lesson that we can take is the stability. Stability in times of crisis. That's often the word that's being used to refer to Merkel's legacy. However, I do see that her stability is not only connected to patience and slow decision making and taking her time forever to do stuff. It's also connected to her values. And in the specific cases of the NSA scandal of, surveillance of world leaders, in the specific case of Crimea invasion of Russia and Crimea, and in the specific case of Fukushima and the earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear disaster, she was very quick to make strong statement and was not afraid to do U-turns. In the case of Fukushima, after being a long-term advocate of nuclear power and even signing an agreement that Germany was going to extend the life of nuclear power plants for over 12 years when she started her tenure. One of the things that we learned, and she was taken aback by the nuclear disaster of Fukushima in Japan in 2011, she decided to change quickly her stand on nuclear power and say that by 2022, Germany will phase out nuclear power plants. That was a very strong decision after seeing, all the possible repercussions that this type of energy had, and even going against her background or what considered to be against, but this is super incredible, that she was not afraid to do so. I don't know what will happen in Germany next year because they're going to have a new chancellor. They had new elections, but we don't know if that plan will change by 2022, but that was the decision that was taken. The other decision that she took was in terms of Crimea. And we discussed this further in an episode for our podcast, Women Who Are International Relations, an interview with Claudia Clark. She is the author of Dear Barack, the extraordinary partnership between Angela Merkel and Barack Obama, and specifically the crisis of Crimea and how she was not afraid to call for sanctions to Russia and to push or boost the decision to push Russia out of the G8, what we later became the G7, as a reprisal for what happened in Crimea, which was considered to be an offense to international law. This is important because we often can fall trap into believing that her leadership was very, like nothing happened, but she did take quick decisions, and she also made it very strong and long lasting. So these are things that we can take from her leadership. I invite you to check the interview that we did with Claudia Clark, explaining more different situations that she encountered and her different partnerships and discussions with other world leaders. I will also feature down below in the description box of this video other documentaries on what female and world and male leaders from around the world are saying about Angela Merkel's legacy. And if you love her figure, if you are criticizing of her figure, what are the lessons that you have learned from these 16 years of her mandate? Is there something that inspires you? Is there something that troubles you? Share down below in the description box of this episode, and remember to subscribe to receive more notifications. Thank you once again for tuning in. Talk to you soon.